Learn the pivot compression golf swing. Join WDGLC.com today.
Hey there everybody, it's Defrancesco. Welcome to my website. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't seen my website, try to visit it, Defrancesco.com. A lot of good stuff there. Check out getting a membership. Anyway, today's video, we're going to talk about the one-plane swing method, and more specifically, Jim Hardy's use of Ben Hogan as an example or as the inspiration for his one-plane swing theories. I'm going to show you how I think Hardy missed the boat and is completely wrong. So let's take a peek. On the screen here we see Chris O'Connell. Now Chris has done a great job with Matt Kuchar, one of the more successful guys on the tour right now, certainly. One of the most consistent players, and great, interesting golf swing. I've done an analysis of it. I really like it, and I'm sure Chris is a great teaching pro. I'm not trying to disparage Chris in any way, but he's here in a commercial. It's an advertisement for a one-plane swing seminar for teachers. So I'll just run through this real quick. This caught my interest. I saw it last year. I haven't done anything with it, but had a little time and said, hey, why don't I do this now? Because the one-plane swing's still hanging around and keeps it's got some traction. So I thought I would talk about the problem I have with that and with Jim Hardy. So let me read this. So what he discovered that got the handle going left on the inner circle like he never had before. Curious, aren't you? Will tell you. Go forward a little bit, and we get there's a catch. You have to attend the 2011 Certified Instructor Summit. You'll hear Jim and Chris talk about this and other new research. Alright, so let's go back and take a look at Chris's swing. Now remember, Chris is not a tour player, he's a teacher, but his swing is here as a demonstration of what the one-plane method is, and they're talking it up. You know, boy, you really compressed that one. So, you know, I feel like it's okay to look at the swing and see what it's doing. Club gets a little underneath him there, and by the time it gets to left arm parallel, you can see the right arm is a little bit underneath the left, and the shaft is starting to get a little flat. And certainly when it gets to the top, you can see that the swing is well laid off. Now, being laid off does not necessarily mean you have to unlay it off. I mean, Hogan laid the thing off and laid it off some more and then steepened it later in the downswing and hit left and was probably the best ball striker that ever lived. We'll go over that in a minute.
Did a quick fix make your swing worse? Wayne Defrancesco will get your swing back on track at WDGLC.com.
But watch what happens in transition with O'Connell. Now remember, they're showing this swing as an example or an exemplary example of what they want to do with whatever their new research is. So I can tell you that if I've got a new student and I see this happening, if I see the grip, I'll dot the grip up here at the top. So if I see the grip descending and going almost straight down, so right to his toes, and if I see especially this movement here, so here's the shaft at the top. Now these angles are a little skewed, but still, you can see it. It's pointed out. Now watch. So that shaft just tilted that much, and then some more in a very short space. Now, I would try to fix that right away, because in my mind the right arm is going to stay up and back, get stuck behind the body, and the hands would never get forward enough to lean the club on the ball. Now, we don't have a front view here, so I've seen enough of these swings. I mean, that's my take on it. So another thing that I would say is that if you want to watch, you can look at all 100 tour swing analysis I've done over the last few years. I can't recall anybody steepening the shaft like this in transition, and that includes Kuchar. So this, however, is exactly what the one-plane swing method teaches. So Hardy somehow got the idea that this is what Hogan was doing. So let me read a little bit from his book, The Plain Truth for Golfers Masterclass. He says, so Hogan went to the practice tee and tried it. Before that, he says, Hogan asked himself, what if I got the club face square in relation to the plane of the swing early and then simply turned through impact? So he went to the practice tee. Instead of pushing that right elbow in front of his hip, almost simultaneously with his two move that we've discussed, which I don't really know what that is, he turned his left forearm counterclockwise at the start of his downswing. So if you turn your left forearm counterclockwise, that means you sort of roll it down your chest, the left arm down your chest toward the ground. This move caused his right forearm to drop and rotate so that the right elbow now stayed up and behind him, and the hands dropped down very close to the right hip. So Ben Hogan did have a secret, and it was that instead of delaying the rotation of the club face by shoving his right elbow down and forward and playing golf from wide open to close during impact, he dropped his right forearm and released or rotated his forearm and club early in the downswing. Okay, so that's what O'Connell is doing here. Right, so you can see as he goes up into the backswing, his forearm is here, and then you can see it tip the other way, and the hand will come down and the shaft steepen. All right, now let's go to some Ben Hogan swings. Now we'll start with a Hogan swing from 1965. Now Hogan, his last great tournament was 1960, where he almost won the U.S. Open, but he still hit the ball great when he was older, all the way into the late 60s and early 70s, where he still played a couple tournaments, but not many. Hogan's prime was really between 1940 and 1955 or 54. Again, he almost won the Open in 55. So, but the swing that most people talk about of Hogan's that produced so many horrible shots and hooks and blah blah blah, as early as 1940, and then for 3 straight years in 41 and 42 and 40, he led the tour in stroke average and earnings. So Hogan was pretty much the best player on the tour that early. Now he went into the Army, and then he came out, and between 46 and 49 he dominated the tour. He won 1 million tournaments and started winning majors, and in his interview said that he never really hit the ball better than that. When he came back from his accident, he was still pretty much unbeatable, but then his body sort of gave out, and he sort of cut down his schedule pretty much and didn't play after 53. We really only played 4 or 5 tournaments a year. Now, let's take a look at, I keep running this back and forth while I'm babbling here, but let's the first thing we want to do, let's take a look at what happens to the grip in the shaft. So, you look at where that grip is. Look where that just went. So I got it going this way. Pretty cool, right? Directly at the ball. And if anything, it popped even more sideways than that. So now, if you watch the shaft, look where that shaft is. Look where it just went. Now, if you've watched any of my analysis of Hogan's swing, you'll note that I find this the most fascinating thing about it is that the out move of the hands, the in move of the upper right arm in front of the side, and the flattening of the shaft, and then the quick steepening all through the rest of the swing is really the coolest thing about it. So, as you can see, the shaft will continue to steepen until it gets perfectly on plane, and then he goes left as hard as he can. So, you tell me, what in the world, and this is, you talk about later competitive years, that's what the term Hardy always uses. Why you would want to look at these swings and not the ones from like 47, 8, 9, or even 51, 2, 3 is beyond me, but go ahead, see? Now, I don't know about you, but his right arm's not doing what Hardy says it's doing. It just isn't. There, take another look. Here's a wedge shot. Now, watch the right arm. So the elbow is on his side. Now look at that move right there. Now you tell me, what does that have to do with what Hardy's talking about? I'll tell you what it has to do with it. Nothing. Boom. Now you go back to 5 Lessons. That's written in 1950, I think 5 and 6. He puts 4 or 5 illustrations of sidearm throwing in that book. So listen to Hogan himself talk about the right arm. It has always seemed to me, Hogan says, that in its general character, this motion of the right arm and hand through impact is quite similar to the one an infielder makes when he throws half underhand, half sidearm to first after scooping up a ground ball. As he swings his arm forward, his right elbow is very close to his right hip. The elbow leads the arm. It is the part of the arm nearest the target as he begins to make the throw. Now you think about that. You take a look at this swing here, and you tell me, put a ball in your hand up here like this, move your arm like O'Connell's moving, or like Hardy claims Hogan was doing, and see if you can throw it sidearm. You'll laugh, because as soon as you move your hand straight down and your arm behind you, you can no longer throw sidearm. Hogan's got pictures in there of a guy with him with a medicine ball, he's throwing it. Every single illustration has the right elbow coming in underneath the left arm and leading. That's the key. It's a sidearm throwing motion. The one plane swing is the opposite. So, if we go back to an earlier let's go to earlier Hogan swing. Like I said, I really have no clue as to why anybody would really want to look at Hogan swings that aren't from a late time. So here's a swing in 54. Let's watch the right arm. Look at that elbow. Ooh. Now, what does that look like to you? I know what it looks like to me, right? It looks like it's in front of him. I mean, do you see anything different? I don't. Let's go back a little earlier. How about 47? Well, I love this swing. What do you think? Now, don't get me wrong, anybody can teach whatever they want. Those guys want to take their arm and leave it back behind them and get down on the inner circle and whatever. That's fine. But don't use Ben Hogan to sell your stuff when it's bogus. He's not doing what you're saying he's doing. I mean, look at that. How could you come up with the fact that it's beside the point that he was hitting the ball better than anybody probably that ever lived right about now. You know, to say he took this and then stopped doing it, all you have to do is go to those later swings and you can see if his arm's not that far in front of him, it's because he's thicker than he was here. He's skinny as hell here. Alright, so that's my deal. I'm sticking with it. Ben Hogan did not leave his right arm up and behind him, ever.